So once again, Rabbi Melamed asked the question essentially, why is Hanukkah enshrined after the end of the Second Temple when many other holidays were not? And so he says that really the Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, gave something to the Jewish people that really was, you can't find a period in Jewish history that it was similar. Just to know a little bit of background, in 609, King Josiah, the last sovereign king of Judea, the last descendant of David, is slain on the battlefield by the archers of Haronecho, the pharaoh. And that's the end of Jewish sovereignty. From that moment on, Israel becomes a state. It pays its taxes to some foreign power, whether it's the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks. It's always paying. Somebody else is always taking all of the excess resources out. That is what it means to be part of an empire. But during the time of the Maccabees, this period of maybe 150 years or so, that was the time when the Jewish people were able to reinvest in their own aggrandizement. And if you look at the period of 200 years or so after the Maccabees, so you end up with this period of time that has all the rabbis of Mishnah, maybe the beginnings of the Talmud. You have the building of the Herodian Beit HaMikdash. All of Torah Shebaal Peh is sort of put together. People that that we know and love, Hillel and Shammai, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yoshua ben Chanina. All of these people are product of that era. And so his argument is that the period, this holiday, is really a celebration of this infusion, and it becomes the holiday in a way which celebrates Torah Shebaal Peh. Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral law, which becomes written down, somewhere around the year 200. But this is an intensely creative period, an important period for the Jewish people, and frankly, we as diaspora Jews would never have survived without all of the richness that was lent to the Jewish people at that point of time. And so we create a holiday to remember what the Maccabees did, and it is a holiday that has light. Now, there's one thing I think I didn't mention last week, which I think is really interesting. What's interesting is that of all the holidays of the year, Hanukkah, more so than Christmas, is always the darkest time of the year. How do I know that? Because Hanukkah, not only does it come during the darkest part of the winter months, but Hanukkah is a holiday which has the excuse me one second. Hanukkah is the one holiday which is always at the dark point of the moon. Hanukkah is going to be on the 25th of the lunar calendar, which means the moon is almost disappeared. And so it appears at that time when there either is a very small waxing moon, very small waning moon, no moon, or a very small waxing moon. That's Hanukkah. So Hanukkah is always the darkest period of time, and it represents the idea of the candles on that are very much an idea of the expansion of light amidst darkness, which is something which is very interesting about this, the way he understands it, which is that this was a time when we were able to reinvest in ourselves to be able to have this incredibly productive period where you have Jewish architecture and Jewish scholarship in a way reaches its great peak. Okay, now there is also something else which I think is which important to look at, which is let's just look. Rabbi Melamed is going to give us some interesting spiritual ideas for future generations. He says, "Im kol hachesronot," with all of the negativity, Haya erech atzum lenitzchotayhem shel Beit Chashmonai. There is something really special about the survival of the house of the Hasmoneans. Hatzma'ut hamedinit lomrot shehayta chelkit, even though there was only a small window of independence. Now, again, in 609 BCE, King Josiah is slain on the field of battle. His sons become puppet kings to Egypt and then Babylon. Then Babylon conquers, and then when Ezra and Nehemiah come, they're subservient to the Persian kings. Then comes Alexander the Great. We're subservient to them, right? We're not a sovereign nation until the Chashmonaim. They gave to the Jewish people from many different angles. Ad az כ-40% מהיבול התוצרת נלקח כמס ליוונים, right? The 40% of the GDP was taken by the Greeks. I don't know how he knows that number, but let's just assume it's correct. מאז ואילך כמעט כל היבול נשאר בארץ וסייע להתפתחותה הכלכלית של יהודה. So this is where he says that this gives this kind of expansion of the economy to Judea. He says, Eretz Yisrael chazra liot hamerkaz halaumi v'aruchani shel Am Yisrael. The Jewish land also became the center of the religious world for the children of Israel. This is a point that we often overlook. After the Jews were exiled to Babylonia, not all of them returned. And probably for a very long time, there was a great struggle between the centers of Babylon and centers of Israel. Right? This is maybe the New York-Jerusalem divide, right? Do you know, by the way, that Louis Brandeis, when in discussions with Ben-Gurion, and he was very involved in the founding of the State of Israel and the Jewish Agency, he told Ben-Gurion, you cannot call America the diaspora.
Because at that point in time, most of the Jews lived in America.
Because how can you say that a Jew in America doesn't live a completely fulfilled life? Okay, but if you lived in New York, you think that.
You live in New York, you never have to think about anything else but being Jewish.
Yes, Lakewood, right. And there's a famous interpretation of Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, where he says, this is the problem is that people think Berlin is Jerusalem. Berlin, right? So here the idea that Hanukkah represents the return of the idea that the center of the Jewish people is in Yerushalayim to the Jewish people. That's something we shouldn't overlook. Okay. Okay, good. So he says, therefore, this little jar of oil is the great symbol and expression of Hanukkah. Because he says, Beit Mikdash Hasheni nechrav v'chol hasugam hamidiyim shel Beit Chashmoni batlu. All of the achievements of the Hasmonean dynasty are essentially erased. Aval limud Torah sheba'al peh shenitpateach v'titatzem be'otam hayamim nishar lanetzach. The one thing which remains from the period of the Hasmoneans, of the days of Hanukkah, is the Torah that was developed under their tutelage, right? The voices of Hillel, the voice of Shammai, they survive even to this day. And so in a way, that's sort of this idea of the oil, the light. And so he says, L'fichach muvanim divrei chachamim shebiaru ki b'zchut nes pach hashemen v'hamitzvah shetiknu chachamim lahadlik nerot. So now we understand why they would choose this idea of the menorah. This idea that light sort of extends, right? There's a certain metaphoric light that the Hanukkah menorah represents that extends past. And I think this is very important because I think Hanukkah is one of those holidays that can get completely subsumed under, and I used to think it was Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but now it's become Cyber Week.
They said on the news tonight that it's no longer Black Friday, it's like Black Friday month, all the way.
Yes.
to the 25th.
Right.
People go on sale and they just go on sale more and more and more.
Yes, right. And
It's, a lot of people confuse Hanukkah with Christmas, right?
yes. So Sue is saying that there's this conflation of Hanukkah, Christmaka, right? But this is not really what the holiday is about. The holiday, and to a certain extent, is about a spiritual survival, and that's really got to be the core message of Hanukkah. The one thing which Rabbi Melamed does, and just to understand him, the modern Israeli Zionists, religious Zionists, love Hanukkah as the proto Yom Ha'atzmaut, because again, the Hashmonaim were the only island of sovereignty since the Davidic dynasty ended in 609 until Ben Gurion. So they love to do that. What Rabbi Melamed is doing is he's saying, okay, yes, true, but we're going to put together a spiritual concept of that. Now, it should be this is both important and scary to mention. So the Hashmonaim, they last, I don't know, 150 years, maybe a little bit less. And the Hashmonaim, the house of the Hasmoneans, they make a critical mistake. They are family of Kohanim. The way it works in the Jewish world is you can be kings. That's the Davidic dynasty. And there is the family of Aaron, which is the Kohanic dynasty. And they're both patrilineal, which means you cannot cross them. You can either be a Kohen or a king, but you can't be both. Certainly not both at the same time. There's a famous story in the Bible of King Uzziyahu. He's the original leper king. He tried to go into the temple, and he tried to take over went in with the unique offering, the incense offering of the Kohen Gadol. He tried to be both king and Kohen, and he was stricken with leprosy in the very place where either his crown would be or the headpiece of the Kohen Gadol would be. Right, he was stricken with leprosy. He died outside of Jerusalem. He had to live outside of Jerusalem because he was stricken with leprosy. Maybe because he never gave up on his machinations to become Kohen as well. You can't cross the two. But the Hashmonaim, right? Bimei Matityahu ben Yochanan Kohen Gadol, right? Matityahu is a Kohen. The family of the Hashmonaim, they are Kohanim, and they take on the role of being kings. And that is a dangerous combination. And it is a corrupting combination. And they quickly are a corrupt dynasty. The Alexandriana practically declares war on the rabbis. Their children, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, are horribly corrupt. There's an episode at the end of the Hasmonean dynasty where one of them bites off the ear of another to disqualify him to be Kohen Gadol. It's ugly, horrible, corrupt stuff. The Romans roll into Jerusalem without a fight because we have two Hasmonean brothers, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, who are fighting so much between each other that the way they solve it is to just let the Romans take over. But we gave away Eretz Yisrael. The reason I think this is such a cautionary tale is that, if our Israel is 75 years old.
76.
Sorry, thank you. 76 years old.
Chashuv.
Yeah, it is chashuv. But yes, right. But that's the order of magnitude. Order of magnitude, 75 years old, right? So we should not ever take things for granted that we do not have to work on making a better Israel, a more just society, to have a well-organized separation of powers. The internal conflicts in Israel right now are quite scary, and we need, the threats do not only come from without, and Medinat Yisrael, the nation of the Jews, has only ever fallen by self-inflicted wounds. Just a very important thing to recognize in terms of the Chashmonaim, that that became corrupted very quickly. But nevertheless, despite the reticence that the rabbis had towards that, they preserved Hanukkah as a holiday of purity. One thing also just to appreciate about about Hanukkah itself is that Hanukkah itself is, in many ways, it's an expression of how we sort of templeize our home. Now, it's true it's not pure temple, because you have 8 branches on your candelabra as opposed to 7 branches on your candelabra. We make sure that's an important distinction. But there are a couple of different things that are laws about the way in which we light the Hanukkah candles, which are reminiscent of the temple. So I'm going to give you 2 lighting laws and 1 ritual law. So the 2 lighting laws are as follows. Number 1 is, the Talmud says that when you do a mitzvah in the mikdash, you do a mitzvah in the temple, you say Hallel. Now, Hallel, the way that the rabbis describe Hallel, is when a tragedy comes upon the Jewish people and they are saved, they say Hallel. Now, if you take those 2 statements together, and you say, well, when you light your menorah, you're supposed to say Hallel, you're supposed to say these songs of praise and recount when Jewish people were destroyed. Well, how does that work out? So let me teach you a song. Ma'os tzur Yeshuati lecha noel l'shabeach. So everybody knows the first one, right? Okay. Now, what's the next one? Right? What's the second? It spells out Mordechai. Ra'ot tzava nafshi biyagon kochi chila chayai meiru bekoshi b'shibud malchot egla ovyado hagadola hotzi et hasigula Chel Paro, the soldiers of Paro, yardu ba'ekeven bimtzula, who fell into. Yes, this is the full Ma'asur. So the first paragraph is. The second paragraph, rather, is
the Paro, Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Paro, B'chol Zaro, right? The soldiers of Pharaoh and his sons. Good, right? It's Mordechai, Reish. Devir kadsho heviani, v'gam sham lo shakateti, uvano geis vehiglani, kizari mahavadeti, v'yein racha masachti, kima che'avarti, Kate Bavel, Zerubbabel. That's the exile of Babylonia. Kate, the end of Bavel, Zerubbabel, right? Then we have Haman comes next, and then finally we get to Hanukkah.
The Yevanim.
Right.
The Yevanim. Yevanim nitzutzu elai.
The Greeks together against me. So Ma'os Tzur is this song that we sing that's almost like we're in the temple saying Hallel over all the tragedies that happened and God saved us from. That's point number 1. So the lighting of the menorah becomes sort of like this temple-esque moment. The second thing is, when you light your Hanukkah candles, you have to be very careful, especially when you use oil. Because when you use oil, sometimes the oil goes out. The wick doesn't always flow through. The oil that's left over, you can't use that for anything. You cannot use that to fry your latkes. You cannot use it to light your Shabbos candles. Can't use it for anything else. It is designated for the mitzvah of Hanukkah. The only thing you can do is save it for next year and light your Hanukkah candles, or you can burn it with your chametz. Those are the only things you can do. Because again, it has this special sort of temple holiness. And so I gave you 2 Hanukkah lighting related laws. And now I'm going to give you a third, right? The third one is a ritual. What is the Torah reading for Hanukkah?
I don't remember.
It's actually, this is the inauguration of the altar. It is the initiation of the Beit HaMikdash.
The Sipur of the Mishkan?
Yeah. Exactly. This is 8 days is the dedication of the Mikdash. The dedication of the Mikdash, interestingly, this is a very nerdy kind of a thing, but hopefully you'll appreciate it. The inauguration of the Mikdash happens on Sukkot.
Oh.
Ironically, we all light the Hanukkah menorah like Hillel. First day, 1 candle, second day, 2 candles, etc. But there's another proposal.
Oh, yeah, Bet Shammai, right.
Right, Beit Shammai proposes something else. He proposes 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right.
Going backwards. What kind of Meshuggah guy was Shammai? Where does that come from? Do you know what Shammai says? Keneged Parei Chag. It's like Sukkot. That's how you do things on Sukkot. There's a very interesting connection between Hanukkah and Sukkot. Anyway. So
Can you just explain that? Can you just explain that? What's that connection? The 8 days backwards.
okay,
How's that
so
connected
how I
to
understand the
Sukkot?
connection in my this is Rosenblatt the academic, not Rosenblatt the Kabbalist. Rosenblatt the Kabbalist could give you a different example, but this is Rosenblatt the academic. On Sukkot, that was when they inaugurated the Temple of Solomon. On Sukkot, also the way that the offerings work is you start with 13, 12, 11, 10, etc. You get to a total of 70. So so it means that the inauguration period goes with descending orders as its mathematical paradigm. And so Shammai says this is an inauguration ceremony. And so in an inauguration ceremony, I'm going to follow the pattern of Sukkot, which is when they inaugurated the Temple of Solomon.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Wow. Mhm.
Okay. But again, that's a nerdy little side fact. Okay, now let's get us past Hanukkah for a moment. So Hanukkah, there's always a Rosh Chodesh in Hanukkah, 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. That brings us into the month of Tevet. Now, going to the month of Tevet, the 10th of Tevet is a very unique holiday. It is the only fast day I know of. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Tisha B'Av has everything in the kitchen sink thrown into it. But the 10th of Tevet is a fast day. And what does the 10th of Tevet commemorate?
Oh,
Okay,
No.
excellent. David, the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar. But there are also 2 other events on the 10th of Tevet which are memorialized. You know what the other 2 are? One is I think it's 8, 9, and 10. They're all sort of put into the 10th of Tevet. Very interesting. And it's interestingly related to Hanukkah. Because Hanukkah, the villains in the Hanukkah story are the Seleucid dynasty. The empire of Alexander the Great breaks up into several different parts. One is the Ptolemaic dynasty, the other the Seleucid dynasty. So the other 2 events, one is the death of Ezra the scribe. Ezra the scribe is, sometimes there are these inflection points in Jewish history. The inflection point of Ezra the scribe is that Torah was given to the masses. He was the one who said you read the Torah at the Watergate, right, where everybody gathers. It needs to be a public reading. He's the one who started Hagbah. The type of writing that we have in the Torah was established by Ezra. Just exceedingly important person. And when he passed away, so they could have called it the Fast of Ezra, but they didn't. They called it the 10th of Tevet. The other event, which is so interesting, is the translation of the Talmud into the Septuagint. The Septuagint.
Oh, but the Greeks.
Yes, King Ptolemy of Alexandria wanted every important book in the world translated to Greek.
Greek, so you can have a monopoly.
I don't know if you can have a monopoly. You get access.
Yeah. You can
Hard to have a
say-
monopoly when the Jews can read it in the original.
No, well, you would be able to say it's Greek. You can take.
Okay. So this was considered, it was a miracle, right? So you take 70 rabbis, put them in 70 different rooms, and they all translated the same. Fast day, I'd say throw a kiddush, right? It's a miracle. Say hello. So the reason it's a fast day is because first of all, whenever you translate, you're going to diminish a work, right? You simply cannot preserve the work. One of the things I think just beautiful about the Torah, first of all, there's a concept called milah mancha that actually Martin Buber made very famous. Milah mancha is to look at how a word in Hebrew permutes over a a section of narrative in some interesting ways. You'll never get that in the English translation. Another one of my favorite examples is
Can you give an example
I'm-
of that Hebrew one?
Mila Mancha. Of Mila Mancha.
Mincha.
Mancha.
Mancha.
It means a guide word. Can I give an example of that? I gave full classes on that last year. Yes. So, for example, what's that?
Say, what's this, what did they say in the Parsha, and it comes from this word, and I was.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. So, right, or just you mean just right now, like Said, right? Said, Gibor Said. That the idea that he was a
Hunter.
hunter. So that might be not quite a milah mancha because it appears in.
Sarah, there was something, you were asking questions, I'm trying to get it not very well. And the.
Yeah, okay.
and He said, sorry, I could teach you how to throw though. And he said, and you said something, and you were talking to the other side of the room, and you said, the root word is this, can you find this?
Okay. All right. I
Well,
don't remember
It
either.
wasn't the question I answered.
Oh gosh. Well, now I'm getting to be one of those people who curses his own memory. But okay, you'll forgive me. I'm going to show you one of my favorite examples of why translations are bad. Let's see if I can get there.
Every translation is also interpretation.
That's true.
Well, this is.
Translations are interpreted.
I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just.
Even when we come to 2020 and Rabbi Berger reads it in Hebrew and then he reads the English, he goes, well, that's not exactly what it says all the time. He said, it's
Nachon, always.
not exactly what it says.
Okay, hold on. I'm close. Okay. Okay. All right. This is the mitzvah of bringing the first fruits to the Kohen, right? And it says the priest shall take the basket from the hand and set it down in front of the altar of God, and you shall recite before God Hashem as follows. This is now here. I'm going to switch to the Hebrew. Arami oved avi. Arami, whatever the word oved means. Oops, sorry. Arami, whatever the word oved means, and then avi, my father. So here they translate it as my father was a fugitive Aramean. You may know this better by my father was a wandering Aramean. Okay, that is one way to interpret it. The other way to interpret it is an Aramean tried to destroy my father. Well, who's the Aramean in this sentence? Who's the Aramean who tried to destroy your father?
Lavan.
Lavan. Good. That's the Lavan interpretation. But if Arami Oved Avi, my father, was a fugitive Aramean, who does that refer to?
Yaakov.
Yaakov.
No. Abraham. Abraham.
Oh, my father. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh, it's Oved Avi, yeah.
Right.
Right.
So it could either refer to Yaakov or to Abraham.
Right.
But the genius of this sentence is that it works fine for either one. Right?
Mm.
Right? Both Yaakov and Abraham had to go down to Egypt. Right? And both had problems in Egypt, and they both had problems because they were fugitives and because Arameans abused them. All sorts of things happened. Right? So you can't translate that to keep both of those things. Right? The Oved has both of them. Yes.
Yeah, could be more than one meaning. Yeah. When we say Arami, that means because Abraham came from Aram Naharaim, so it was Arami from Aram Naharaim. And you're right, Oved could be got lost, or he was a fugitive, or somebody somebody was after him. All of those in the same one word.
There you go. Exactly. Multiple valences in the Hebrew. When you translate it, you can't get that.
Ifshar.
So that goes by itself. But then there are 18 places where the Talmud says that the translation was purposefully changed. The most comical of them was that Talmi's wife was named Arnevet. or maybe she was named whatever the Greek equivalent of Arnevet is, but they had to say that that whatever animal she was that was really the Arnevet was kosher. And so they had to change her name, because that's the most comical of them. But one of them is the fact that I'm going to go back to Bereshit. No, Oved either means wandering, so that's the fugitive part. It's weird because they make it a noun. So, because it means to wander. Arami Oved, a wandering Aramean was my father, is one version, and the other version is Arami Oved as a transitive verb. Arami Oveded my father, tried to destroy my father. Right. So yeah, it's one.
From the root le'abed is to destroy.
Right. I mean, okay, David's trying to save the translation. So the one of the most famous changes in the Septuagint, first of all, at the beginning it says, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, right? Which is, in the translation, they said, God began to create, right? That's actually not the translation. Even here, they fudge the translation. Because Bereshit means in the beginning, bara, created, Elokim, God, heaven and earth, right? That's how you would translate it. But here, I think I only look at the star. Others in the beginning, God created. Okay, they admit that that's another translation. But the Septuagint would translate it like this, because they're afraid that someone would misinterpret this to understand that in the something called Bereshit, bara Elokim, created God. Right. Now,
because
they were right to worry, because the Kabbalists read tremendous amount into the word Bereshit, because they need to understand the transition of God from Ein Sof into some kind of other, Tzimtzum. It would be the Lurianic version of it. But this question, which interestingly the Talmud tells you don't actually, you don't want to spend too much time on that because it can lead to heresy. But we'll leave that alone. But the rabbis had to change the translation of Bereshit. Another one is a little bit later in this chapter. It's
Rabbi, if I may, I don't think you've kind of stressed the miraculousness of the point that all 70 of those rabbis gave the same misinterpretation.
Yes.
Without conversing with each other.
Yes, right. In separate rooms, right? Hold on, I went to.
Well, they was sequestered in one room, each one in their own room. It took months to translate the Septuagint.
The other miracle, that it didn't take forever. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Why not? Or nase in plural. Nase Adam in plural.
Let us make man.
Mm-hmm.
They did not translate it, let us make man, because they thought that the Greeks would not be able to understand how such a term could fit in. If you remember, Rabbi Berger gave the speech about this on Shabbat Bereshit.
With the Malachim, yeah.
Right, it teaches Derech Eretz. That's Rashi's interpretation. So again, these were just changes in the Torah. So this idea that, and also I think the one last idea that really troubled the rabbis is that the idea that the Torah just becomes another book, that the Torah written in a sacred language is a sacred book, and when you turn it into Greek, you turn it into just another book amongst books, or certainly less so. Which is, by the way, an argument for Hebrew classes. That being able to read this in its original preserves a bit of a sacred sacred trust that we have.
Absolutely.
Ask them where they're from.
You know, steps along the way, steps along the way. Okay.
So you're saying English translation is from the Septuagint?
No. I was just saying in that particular instance, it followed the initiative of the century at the very beginning of Bereshit, because they made a choice not to say in the beginning God created.
Rabbi. Hello, can you hear
I
me?
think the same. Yes, I mean yes, Esther.
This is from Rabbi Tovia Singer, Rabbi, that the original Septuagint was actually not the same now that we have.
This is
So-
not an area that I have any knowledge about, so you may be 100% right. I really don't know.
Okay, I just I thought.
So yeah, but it generally sometimes referred to as the Targum Shivim, in Hebrew, the translation of the 70. I think that's what Septuagint means, 7 or 70.
70.
Generated by 70. Again, my Greek is non-existent. I need Adam Rosengarten to help me out.
Yeah, but the Hebrew hasn't changed. It's all the different translations that changed. The Hebrew stayed the same over the generations.
They are saying that it was burned. It was burned. So the original.
Okay, okay. Look, fair enough. Getting back to the original subject on this, right? The original subject is that the rabbis established a fast day. And what I was trying to help us understand, is that the translation represents, to a certain extent, a making profane, a perversion of Torah from its original. And so we establish a fast day in a way to remind us how valuable it is to read Torah in its original Hebrew. And I was just trying to give a couple of examples of how that distortion comes about. And so
That 10th of Tevet is the fast day for that?
yes, correct. I mean, the 10th of Tevet, obviously, we established 3 themes. Theme number 1 was the siege of Jerusalem. Theme number 2 was the death of Ezra the Sofer. Theme number 3 is the translation of the Septuagint. So, and I will just add on, there's a 4th piece of this particular holiday, which is in the modern era, after the Holocaust, they established the 10th of Tevet as the yard site for everybody whose yard site is unknown. So it also has a bit of a Holocaust theme in the modern dimension. Okay, Tov, we're gonna close this up here. And again, people, I'm very happy to take suggestions on topics. So please feel free to send me a note. And thank you all for joining. Okay, but
It's very controversial.
oh, good, my favorite. Okay. All right.
According to the Eliezer ben
Lila,
Yehuda.
okay,
Thank you.
that's not what topic I'm gonna take on, Mayor. All right.
No,